She did a lot of talking a few months ago about the Indiana Fever, the locker room environment, how people didn't want to play there, how people wanted to leave.
The Indiana Fever are that golden destination, and I can't help but laugh to the fans and the people online and the media commentators, unfortunately, who said that nobody wanted to play in Indiana. That doesn't make any sense.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want.
Imagine being so confident that the Indiana Fever was a dead end, you announce it loud and proud, only to watch the biggest free agents flood in practically overnight. That's exactly where Sheryl Swoopes stands right now. She's a legend, sure, but her latest predictions are turning into punchlines, and the reason boils down to one name: Caitlin Clark. Suddenly, the Fever's stacking talent like never before, and the whole WNBA landscape is shifting, wondering how it all flipped so fast, and why Swoopes might be feeling the heat. Keep watching, because once you see what really happened, you'll never doubt the Fever or Caitlin Clark again. So here's the wild scenario. Sheryl Swoopes, yes, the Sheryl Swoopes, Hall of Famer and former face of the WNBA, confidently declared that the Indiana Fever was the last place any big-name free agents would want to go. Fast forward a few months, and she's stuck watching the Fever sign some of the league's most sought-after players, one after another, like they're throwing the most exclusive party in town. It's not just ironic, it's downright jaw-dropping. Her key, bold prediction has done a 180, and it's left everyone wondering, how did the Fever, long overlooked and supposedly undesirable, turn into the hot destination in the WNBA? At the center of it all is Caitlin Clark, a rising superstar who some folks claimed needed years before she'd make any real noise. Now she's not just making noise, she's rewriting the entire script, selling out arenas, pulling free agents in like a magnet, and shattering old narratives that used to keep Indiana on the sidelines. Suddenly, all eyes are on the Fever. Are we witnessing the next powerhouse squad in women's basketball? And where does this leave Sheryl Swoopes, who went all in on the idea that no top-tier player would touch Indiana with a 10-foot pole? Strap in, because what the Fever just pulled off isn't your typical feel-good underdog story. This is a league-shifting move that's already ruffling feathers and has Sheryl Swoopes looking like she might want to hit the reset button on those takes. Ready to see how it all went down and why the entire WNBA might be on notice? Let's get into the details, because if you blink, you'll miss the biggest plot twist women's basketball has seen in years. Let's rewind a bit and figure out why Sheryl Swoopes' words still carry so much weight, and why it's such a big deal that she misjudged the Fever. Swoopes isn't just another talking head, she's the Sheryl Swoopes, Hall of Famer, 3-time WNBA MVP, and a genuine trailblazer for women's basketball. Back in her era, if she said something, the entire league listened. She helped put the WNBA on the map, and that legacy means people tend to take her opinions seriously, even when they sound a little out there. On the flip side, you've got Caitlin Clark. She's barely finished her rookie season, and yet she's already shattering scoring records, pulling insane crowds, and becoming the face of a new generation of hoops. While most rookies are focused on just finding their footing, Clark's out here snatching headlines like she's been in the league for a decade. That star power has turned her into a magnet for both fans and free agents, something nobody could have predicted just a couple of years ago. Now throw in the Indiana Fever, a team that's historically flown under the radar since the days of Tamika Catchings. They were known for empty arenas, lackluster seasons, and barely making the playoffs. Fast forward to today, and they're suddenly the WNBA's it team, thanks in large part to the buzz around Clark. So, when Sheryl Swoopes stepped up and claimed nobody would want to join the Fever, it caught everyone's attention. After all, if a legend like that says you can't succeed, you're supposed to listen, right? But the way things unfolded next was anything but predictable, and that's where our story really starts heating up. Sheryl Swoopes didn't just float a casual opinion. She planted her flag on the idea that Indiana was basically the WNBA's no-go zone. She spoke about supposed locker room chaos, hinted that players couldn't wait to bail, and even questioned whether Caitlin Clark had the chops to lure anyone in. It wasn't a passing remark. She delivered these takes with the conviction of someone who'd personally polled every free agent in the league. Naturally, fans and media took notice. If Sheryl Swoopes says it, there must be fire behind the smoke, right? But as people dug deeper, a different picture emerged. The Fever weren't the same punchline they'd been in recent seasons. They had a budding superstar in Caitlin Clark, a front office committed to spending money on top talent, and a new wave of energy pulsing through their roster. So almost immediately, folks started raising eyebrows at Swoopes' remarks, wondering if maybe she was stuck viewing Indiana through an outdated lens, like they were still living in those post-Tamika Catchings doldrums. That's when the real spark came. Swoopes doubled down. She insisted the Fever's supposed issues weren't just going to disappear, and she remained skeptical of Clark's ability to flip Indiana's reputation. Critics fired back on social media, questioning her sources and implying she might be underestimating how quickly a talented rookie could change a franchise's image. It wasn't that people disrespected Swoopes' legacy, far from it, but they also weren't buying a narrative that directly contradicted what they were seeing on the court. A team with momentum, an organization ready to shift gears, and a rising star pulling fans and free agents into the Fever orbit. In many ways, it felt like a clash between old school and new school perspectives. You had a Hall of Famer who helped shape the league's history, making strong claims that suddenly didn't line up with the fast-moving realities of modern WNBA business. And you had a massive group of fans, analysts, and even fellow players scratching their heads and saying, "Wait, have you seen what's happening in Indiana lately?" The stage was set for one of the most surprising turns in recent WNBA memory, and everyone was bracing for the showdown. When free agency rolled around, the exact opposite of Sheryl Swoopes' bleak forecast happened. The Indiana Fever went on an absolute shopping spree. It felt like every time you refreshed your feed, another major talent was heading to Indy. First came Natasha Howard, an all-star caliber forward with championship experience, signing on the dotted line and openly praising the idea of teaming up with Caitlin Clark. Not long after, Dawana Bonner hopped aboard, bringing her lethal scoring and veteran swagger. Then Sophie Cunningham, who's basically a walking spark plug, chose Indiana over other, seemingly more glamorous markets. And if that wasn't enough, Sydney Coulson, who's been tight with some of the league's biggest stars, joined the party too. For a team that supposedly had locker room issues and nobody wanted to go there, these deals were like fireworks on the 4th of July. Every new signing was a direct contradiction to Swoopes' earlier claims, like someone hitting the reverse button on her entire narrative. And it wasn't just the caliber of players that turned heads. It was how openly they spoke about being excited to play in Indiana. Suddenly, the Fever looked less like the perennial underdogs and more like a squad assembling an all-star cast around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Even the vibe around the franchise started to shift. You saw players posting on social media about their enthusiasm for the fresh culture, the revamped facilities, and, yes, the chance to run alongside a budding superstar who's already reshaping women's basketball. If you were looking for evidence that the Fever weren't just stuck in a rebuild rut, this free agency proved it beyond a doubt. They weren't just signing players, they were changing minds, defying low expectations, and setting themselves up to contend way sooner than anyone could have imagined, even Sheryl Swoopes. Let's be real, the Indiana Fever's free agency success wasn't just luck. It was the Caitlin Clark effect in full swing. She's the kind of talent that draws crowds, media, and, crucially, other top-tier players. From her jaw-dropping range, we're talking logo distance threes like they're layups, to her ability to rack up assists and make teammates shine, Clark's game demands attention. And attention in the WNBA translates to opportunity, something veterans and younger stars alike don't want to miss out on. When elite talents like Natasha Howard or Sophie Cunningham say they're excited to play alongside Clark, that isn't just a compliment. It's a sign they believe she can elevate their game too. The days when a rookie had to earn their place before attracting free agents are over. Clark walked into the league with a level of hype we haven't seen in a long time, and she's been living up to it. She's not waiting to become a superstar in 3 or 4 years. She's owning that role right now. Beyond the on-court impact, there's also the brand factor. Clark brings a massive following and an undeniable media spotlight. For many players, especially those looking to boost their own visibility, teaming up with the league's hottest prospect just makes sense. It's no longer about whether Indiana is a small market or not. Wherever Caitlin Clark plays suddenly becomes a front and center market, and every free agent who signs up recognizes that. They're not just signing with a new team, they're joining an unstoppable wave of momentum. And as each new star walks through the door, it only amplifies the gravitational pull of Caitlin Clark & Co. even more. As the Fever kept rolling out one major signing after another, Sheryl Swoopes' credibility took a nosedive, right along with her bold claims. Every time news dropped that yet another top-tier player had chosen Indiana, fans circled, back to her earlier pronouncements like, "Wait, I thought nobody wanted to play there?" It was almost comical how her predictions morphed into the exact opposite of reality, and with each social media call-out, Swoopes' once impeccable standing started to look shakier. Nobody's denying her status as a Hall of Famer, But it's hard to ignore that she dug her own hole by flat out refusing to acknowledge how quickly things were changing around her. The most jarring part? Swoopes seemed to either dismiss or downplay every piece of evidence contradicting her. Instead of saying, "Hey, maybe I got this one wrong," she kept doubling down on locker room issues or acting like Caitlin Clark hadn't truly proven herself yet, despite the sheer number of players happily flocking to join her. That refusal to adapt only fueled the narrative that Swoopes is clinging to an outdated view of the league. Fans could practically feel her frustration through every forced statement, and it was a stark reminder that no matter how legendary your resume might be, reality has a way of catching up to bad takes in real time. Now, while Swoopes remains a revered figure for her monumental contributions to women's basketball, her recent misfire had people questioning just how in tune she is with the new-look WNBA. It's one thing to voice concern or skepticism, it's another to watch a franchise you wrote off become the hottest ticket in the league, all while you're left scrambling to defend your words. If there was any doubt that Caitlin Clark and the Fever have changed the game, Swoopes' fallout is the final sign. And it's a reminder to everyone else that the era of Indiana irrelevancy is officially over. The Fever's sudden glow-up has created a ripple effect across the league. Teams that once looked invincible, like the Las Vegas Aces, are suddenly losing key pieces, while Chicago's scrambling to find a clear post-star plan, and Connecticut seems stuck in a mini-implosion. Meanwhile, Indiana is snapping up talent, like they're running an all-you-can-sign buffet. It's not just a good look for the Fever, it's a reality check for everyone else. Once you see a squad go from "please don't pick us" to best free agency haul in the WNBA, you realize how quickly the power balance can shift. The message is loud and clear. The old guard isn't guaranteed success anymore. The presence of Caitlin Clark, combined with a front office that's actually ready to invest, has turned Indiana into a magnet. Players talk, and the buzz is that the Fever are building something special, a new style of basketball that's fast, flashy, and steeped in fresh energy. For the rest of the league, that means evolving or risk getting left behind. The days of assuming Indiana would just roll over each season are gone. Now they're gunning for a top spot, and the rest of the WNBA has no choice but to respond. At first glance, it might seem puzzling that a legend like Sheryl Swoopes would go so hard against a rising star like Caitlin Clark. But when you dig deeper, it's not that shocking. We're talking about a player, Clark, who basically rewrote the rules on how quickly a newcomer can captivate an entire league. Old school wisdom says you pay your dues quietly, maybe see limited minutes and keep a low profile until you've proven yourself. Clark flipped that script by coming in hot with record-breaking performances, viral highlights, and near-instant mainstream fame. For some veterans, especially those who helped build the WNBA in its formative years, this flashy new era can feel like it's overshadowing their contributions. They didn't have social media hype, consistent national TV spots, or the massive buzz that today's stars enjoy. Seeing someone like Clark explode onto the scene, commanding more attention and endorsement possibilities in her first season than some legends did in their entire career, can spark a sense of resentment or protectiveness over the history they helped create. It's not necessarily pure jealousy. Often it's about pride in having paved the way and frustration that a new face gets all the love without waiting her turn. The reality is, though, that Clark's success doesn't erase what Swoopes accomplished. It just marks a new chapter in a league that's still growing. Unfortunately, that growth can feel like it's speeding right past those who once led the charge. And when you're in Swoopes' position, watching a rookie earn a level of star power you fought years to build, it's easy to become skeptical, defensive, or even dismissive. But the league's evolution won't slow down for anyone. No matter how decorated they are, Caitlin Clark simply embodies the next wave, and as uncomfortable as it might be for some legends, that wave is undeniably here to stay. All things considered, this has been one of the most dramatic flips in recent WNBA memory. Sheryl Swoopes made bold claims, betting against a franchise she thought was forever stuck in the basement, and now finds herself on the losing end of her own prediction. Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever, powered by Caitlin Clark's unstoppable momentum, have proven that a team written off as nobody's first choice can transform into the league's most compelling destination almost overnight. It's a testament to how quickly the WNBA is evolving and how one transcendent player can be the catalyst for a franchise-wide makeover. But it's more than just a win for the Fever. It's a win for women's basketball as a whole. People who never gave the WNBA a second glance are suddenly tuning in to see what Caitlin Clark and her new superstar teammates will do next. The landscape is shifting. Legends are reconsidering their stances, and we're witnessing a fresh chapter where old narratives get blown up in real time. So the question now is Can the Fever ride this wave all the way to a championship? And will Swoopes ever admit she underestimated them? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the Fever are legit title contenders? Or is there still more work to be done? And if you've loved this breakdown, make sure to hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss what's coming next. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.